Frank Lloyd Wright was asked once in an interview, did he believe in God? And he famously replied, yes, but I call her nature. When Professor Delco contacted me and said, would I agree to do a chapel, I couldn't believe the request was so exciting and such an honour to be asked. For a few days I didn't believe that I'd actually been asked to produce a building in this city, especially coming from such a young country with only 200 years of history. Architects design buildings for clients. Architects understand the problem of the building and solve the building problem. Belief in God or a particular religion is a separate thing, and so I don't believe the two are necessarily linked at all. The reality is that we're humbled by our existence in the cosmos, and we should never lose sight of that. The history of the church is to bring the word of God to the world, to travel distance and to overcome the tyranny of distance. And architects have always been complicit in that strategy, because usually what has happened historically is the first building that is constructed in a new place historically is the church. I think the challenge of engineering a campanile in the 21st century is no different from centuries ago. However, the technology that's available to us now facilitates the solution in a far quicker way, but not necessarily in a better way. So the reality in Venice is that the bell towers are still standing, so they work. Therefore, all we would be doing in the 21st century is nuancing the solution. And when we met with the builders and engineers on our site, the discussion was very exciting, because it was as if we were back 500 years ago talking about the problem of how to build under extremely difficult circumstances. And frankly, the genius of Venice is hard to match on the planet. So when we were given the project of a woodland chapel on this site, my first response was to make sure that the water and the landscape were a part of the design. I wanted to make an outdoor chapel, a place where people could come and congregate casually around an altar with the water as the backdrop, because the combination of the sea and the landscape is compellingly beautiful. Therefore, any architectural intervention needs to enhance that, make it even better. And so my idea was to position the congregation so that they could see past the altar to the water, and to then make a very small physical intervention on the land. So the footprint of my chapel is only 2.4 metres by 2.4 metres. In fact, it's adopting the dimensions of a 40-foot shipping container, on the basis that this chapel will be transported and may be moved again and again. So the material choice for the building is also challenging. There are a number of layers behind the choice. In fact, we are building by the sea, so we're building in a salt environment. Therefore, the material choice has to be one of durability. Also, the church is represented by the building, and therefore durability is symbolic in this case of the existence of the church in the past, the present and the future as being a substantial thing. The selection of the zinc, the Zintek zinc, is sophisticated and refined. And so those two materials contrasting with one another result in a dynamic or a drama, the drama of contrast that makes for an interesting building. The gold, obviously, is a direct reference to the spiritual, to suddenly find a different thing, to be drawn heavenward is, of course, because this is a chapel. And when they approach the object and arrive at the altar, they look up to heaven, to the sky, which is framed and illuminated with gold light. So the idea of the opening and closing is twofold. One, it's to do with the drama of the liturgy of the Mass. So at the start of Mass, normally there is a procession to when the priest enters and stands at the altar. In this context, that drama is replaced by revealing the altar. So you can imagine that the start of a Mass would commence with the drama of the reveal. At the same time, it reveals the backdrop of the ocean. So those two ideas of heaven and nature come together at that moment of drama. At the conclusion of the Mass, similarly, the chapel closes back down again, and that is the recessional part of the liturgy. So this is a different way of interpreting an historic series of moments in the delivery of Mass. I was lucky to have the opportunity to use a local product, which is the Zintek, which is a beautiful, durable material, but also has its own character and patina. The weathering of materials, some materials weather beautifully, some materials don't weather beautifully. Those that do are usually natural-based materials. So iron, metal compounds, they're materials that are coming out of the ground and in 1,000 years will go back into the ground. In the period in between, the period where the architect is trying to control the outcome, the materials can age and weather in particular ways. In the case of this combination of materials, the zinc will dull off, maybe go a little bit powdery and get its own patina and character. The steel will dull, it will lose any shine and become more neutral. And those things combined in just a simple combination of two materials here is about a level of resistance that's sympathetic with nature, not trying too hard to force her back, not being so weak that she wins. And that juggling act is true of every single project that an architect does.